5,000 American U.S.
Five
dollars.
large.
$5,000 home for first place, but they're going to have to play a couple rounds of Magic to be able to take that down. 8 players remain. 7 are going to be pretty happy, but only 1 is going to be really happy by the end here. I am Reuben Bresler, and I am joined by the Tannon, and we're bringing you top 8 coverage of CardMageddon here from Las Vegas, Nevada, and we have made our top 8. And our top 8 players include Poker Pro Eric Froehlich, Poker Pro David Williams, and a bunch of Magic players. No, I'm kidding. And we're going to be following one of our pros, Eric Froehlich. He's going to be up against my pick to win the tournament at the beginning of the day, Andrew Batinich. And that's going to be a matchup of Abzan Whip from Eric Froehlich up against Green-Black Devotion. Straight up Green-Black Devotion on the other side for Aaron Batinich. We saw Aaron playing Red-Green Heroic in Modern to qualify for today.
It was a delight.
That's a great deck.
Yeah.
You guys, there's a video of it probably in the highlights and on saved here on the CardMageddon Twitch channel. You guys should go take a look at that deck because it is a delight. But for now, we're going to go down to the action. Aaron Batinich against Eric Froehlich, live here from Las Vegas in our first of 4 semifinals. And here it's Andrew Batinich is the 3rd seed up against Eric Froehlich. Our other matchups, we have Ben Lundquist is one of the backups. He is going to be up against William McDonald, I believe, and that is a matchup of Blue-Black Control against Blue-White Heroic. Our other matchups are Dave Williams is the 2 seed, I do believe, up against Jake Hill. That is a matchup of, let's see here, Abzan Whip against Black-Green Constellation, which is very similar to this matchup. And also Shane Merrill, our number 1 overall seed, who's playing Jeskai Tokens, is up against the Blue-White Heroic of Lewis Gall. So a couple of Blue-White Heroics, a bunch of Abzan Whips, a couple of Black-Green Devotions, and a lonely Jeskai Tokens at the top. So we're going to get underway here. Eric Froehlich stole the initiative here a little bit with the Sylvan Caryatid on the draw. Andrew Batinich's turn 3 is going to whiff on a land off of Satyr Wayfinder, but he still has a Temple of Malady for his 3rd land draw.
He had a Communal Gods that was actually pretty good on turn 2 also.
What did he grab off of that?
I didn't see what he actually grabbed, but he spilled a bunch of really good stuff into his yard. So he's got a bunch of food for his whip later.
Yep, Hornet Queen and probably a Doomwake Giant in there as well.
It was a little off the screen at the time. We had to get them to move their decks down.
Certainly. Andrew Batinich's Black-Green Devotion deck, by the way, was popularized by the Peach Garden Oath players Owen Turtenwald, Huey Jensen, and Reed Duke at the World Championships last week. Very similar to the list that they played, not exactly the same. He does have a main decked Soul of Innistrad, in addition to the usual smattering of enchantments such as Satyr Wayfinder can put in there, such as Courser of Crucifix, Farika, God of Affliction, and Eidolon of Blossoms, in addition to Doomwake Giant. Eric Froehlich, meanwhile, is going to play a turn 3 Siege Rhino right on schedule with his Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2. Andrew Batinich's 4 mana creature is going to be Eidolon of Blossoms, and he's going to pass the turn right back after playing the enchantment creature with Constellation.
Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty grindy matchup between these 2 decks. Both players have whip, both players have huge creatures, and both players have a ton of removal. So the first person to get out to like a real lead, like Eric is here, is going to be able to look to leverage their lead and stay that way.
Now, usually something that you'd say is who's advantaged is who's going to be the one that can leverage Hornet Queen the best, right? But both players have 2 copies of Hornet Queen and 3 copies of Whip of Erebos, so they basically have the same number. And also, both players have Doomwake Giant.
Yeah.
3 copies for Aaron, 4 copies for Eric Froehlich. So I actually don't think that, while Hornet Queen's going to be very powerful, it's not necessarily the game-breaking card that it often is. As we see a 2nd Siege Rhino, and Andrew Batinich put into play a Doomwake Giant of his own. Both Siege Rhinos entering the battle zone here. Doomwake Giant standing in front of one of the Rhinos to block. And Utter End is going to remove the Doomwake Giant so he can trample through for 8 damage. And Andrew Batinich is going to untap, taking a lot of damage. He is at 9, actually. Eric Froehlich is at 25. Looks like Andrew Batinich is down to 1.
Yeah, we have the life totals kind of backwards. We haven't updated yet, but Andrew Batinich is at 1 right now.
Yep, and Eric Froehlich is the player who's at 25,
right,
having gained all the life from the Siege Rhinos. Still 25-1. So Andrew Batinich already up against the wall. We thought it was going to be a little bit more grindy than this.
Well, Eric had a turn 3 Rhino followed by a turn 4 Rhino. You can't really draw it up worse than that.
Yeah. And also had the kill spell on the Doomwake Giant to be able to trample through for a bunch of damage.
Eric's draw this game has been great. This is the kind of start you want, and as I said, you just want to be able to leverage it with like a 1-for-1 removal spell to get through and make sure your Rhinos get through and trample
Rhinos
over.
backed up by an elimination spell.
Yeah, Andrew drew all of his small creatures, and the fact that these Rhinos have trample is causing a lot of stress on his life total here.
So here's Downfall taking down a Siege Rhino, and Utter End removing the Satyr Wayfinder for the last point of damage means Eric Froehlich takes game 1 off of Andrew Batinich.
Now, before the match, we're talking about this might be a really long, grindy. We're looking to have maybe probably like an hour, maybe even over an hour of this untimed match.
Right.
That took 5 minutes.
Man, it did not take very long at all. When you play turn 2 Caryatid, turn 3 Rhino, turn 4 Rhino, turn 5 kill spell. It's very, very easy to put damage in very quickly.
I mean, Eric's got somewhere to be.
Yeah.
There's no messing around right now.
Sure.
Eric is a man on a mission.
Absolutely.
In fact, I will say this. I would love to give him a good ribbing if he wins this tournament. Because, as everybody knows, Eric's always been the bridesmaid.
That's true. He has not won. He's always telling us he hasn't won a major Magic trophy.
Right.
And
Winnie's a good one to break that streak with.
Look at this trophy. This trophy's so good. He wants to high-five Eric Froehlich.
Oh, man.
What Winnie wants to do.
I think it's one of the times you could get a high five out of Eric Froehlich, too.
That's right.
He's usually all business. He's like, I don't have time for that. I got to go win my match.
So Andrew Batinich, by the way, is playing Black-Green Constellation, but he is able to splash white. He's playing 4 copies of Sandstep Citadel, as well as the Sylvan Caryatids in his main deck, to be able to play 2 copies of Ajani, Mentor of Heroes, out of his sideboard. He also has 4 Read the Bones, 3 Drown in Sorrow, 1 Reclamation Sage, 2 Thoughtseize, the last Doomwake Giant, an Arbor Colossus, and 1 copy of Dead Drop in his sideboard.
That's a sweet
one. I think that one's particularly good against things like Blue-White Heroic.
Right.
Might also come in here because we have a long, grindy matchup.
Right. It usually is going to end up getting Sylvan Caryatids, which by the time you can cast them generally isn't that great, and there's Hornet Queen on the other side, so it's generally not that great. If you bring it in, you probably have to finagle a game state where it's good, so by that knowledge, I don't know if it's that great of a card in this matchup, but for sure, he might bring in the Johnny's. I think he's bringing in these 4 Read the Bones for sure.
Absolutely. I think that both the Johnny and Read the Bones are the card advantage engines that he's looking for. He could also be bringing in this Reclamation Sage to be able to take out random coursers and opposing Doomwake Giants and Whips. Thoughtseizes, I think, are a pretty good expectation. Plus these other mid-range creatures like Doomwake Giant and Arbor Colossus, he can add more, subtract other things if he wants to, but he's already got so many of those mid-range cards.
Yeah, Arbor Colossus is very big in this matchup. It actually just attacks through a Siege Rhino, and if Wingmate Rock was on the other side, he'd definitely be bringing in. Now, on Eric's side, we have 3 Drown in Sorrows, a Reclamation Sage, a Glare of Heresy, a Hero's Downfall, 2 Bioblights, a Pharika, 1 Silence of Believers, 1 Thoughtseize, 2 Eidolon of Blossoms, and 2 Ajani Mentor of Heroes. I think the Silence of Believers is going to shine here.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially if he's able to leverage an attacking game state like he did in the last game, where his Siege Rhinos can go on the offensive. The rules with Trample state that after blockers are declared, if the blocker is no longer there, those Rhinos can just trample on over and deliver the rest of their damage.
Right. Other than that, things like Hero's Downfall, Reclamation Sage, Pharika are going to come in, just, shore up his removal, take out the cards that he thinks are a little weaker in this game, and it's going to be generally, he's going to try to be more of a controlling version on the draw. I mean, on that game, we definitely saw him in the draw just beat down his opponent, but you can't always have turn 3 Rhino, turn 4 Rhino, removal spell. Right. I mean, if we draw it up every game, this is the best deck in the format. It's going to do that.
Right. So, in this matchup, these players have very similar decks. They have a lot of similar numbers of similar cards.
Right.
The main difference here is that Eric Froehlich has access to Siege Rhino, whereas Andrew Batinich has more Eidolon of Blossoms to continue his card drawing engine. Which side of that would you rather be on?
Well, I think I'd rather be on the Siege Rhino side if we're casting them on the same turn, because we saw in the game that Eric got to leverage the fact that his opponent had 0 3s and 2 2s in play, so he had 4 5 Tramplers. Like, if the game goes long, obviously, it's going to favor the card drawing engine. But if the game goes quickly, it's going to favor the Siege Rhino. So it matters how quick of a hand Andrew has in this game. His game was a little bit slower in that game. He didn't have the turn 2 Mana Accelerant. He didn't do a whole lot on turn 3, while Eric was just playing 4 5s of Trample.
Yep, absolutely. So Andrew lost a quicker game. If he's hoping for a slower game, do you think he's bringing in cards like Read the Bones to help his slower game plan, or do you think he needs to hedge a little bit and prevent the faster game from happening?
Well, I mean, you can't expect that kind of game to always happen. If he has 1 Hero's Downfall, he's way in that game.
Yeah.
which, not having a removal spell to kill one of the rhinos is a big deal. The Read the Bones are most certainly coming in, because the games are going to be longer and grindier, and casting a Read the Bones, scrying 2 lands at the bottom, or scrying 2 cards that aren't good, and drawing extra cards is going to be great in this match, because whoever has more cards in this match is probably going to win, since the decks are so similar.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know that Eric was lending out cards to a couple folks for this tournament, including Dave Williams, who's also in this top 8, and Shahar Shenhar, who made the top 16 of this event. So, all those 3 players, I believe, were very close to playing the Abzan Whip deck. Shahar ended up playing Temur, and Dave and Eric are both firmly on this Abzan Whip deck, and they're very confident in their ability here. But Andrew Batinich, after a brief conversation with Mr. Tannon and Grace here, decided that Black-Green Constellation was the way to go. Right. So I think that both of these players know that the heart of the deck, the cards that are making the engine go, the Sylvan Caryatid, Corsair Crufix, of course, but also backed up by Whip of Erebos and value creatures like Doomwake Giant, is certainly something that they are interested in doing. So we're going to toss it back down to the match. Watch Game 2 with Andrew Batinich on the play. He is the 3 seed up against the 6 seed of the tournament, Eric Froehlich, trying to pick up a trophy for himself here in Magic the Gathering, something that he doesn't yet have, actually, with his Pro Tour top 8s and 12 Grand Prix top 8s. And we are already underway with Andrew Batinich playing a second copy of Temple of Malady as his second land drop. Meanwhile, Eric Froehlich has a Llanowar Wastes Neither player with a Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2. Eric Froehlich was able to steal the initiative with his Mana Accelerant on turn 2 last game. Big deal for Andrew Batinich that neither player had it this time around, as we see a Thoughtseize out of Andrew.
And time again, we've seen this weekend, the player with the turn 2 Mana Accelerant in these kind of matchups has just been far, far ahead of their opponent.
Especially in these slower, grindier, black-green based mirrors. So we see a hand with a lot of land in it, as well as a Siege Rhino, Pharika, and I believe Whip of Erebos.
Right, that's correct.
I see a second Siege Rhino and also a Murderous Cut, in addition to 2 lands. Andrew writing the cards down. Notice the Sultai and Abzan symbols on his hat there. Looks like he took the Pharika. Does that look right to you?
Right, it's usually the hardest card for him to remove and deal with in this match.
He decided to take the Whip. Okay. And there is the Pharika. So he decided that Whip was the one that was scarier, that he wanted to get rid of.
It's going to be interesting to see how Andrew answers this Pharika of this game. He's going to try to just control the board to where it's never active and see if, the fact that he has 4 Doomwake Giants helps keep him from getting overrun by these 1/1 snakes. So maybe he feels that it's not as important as a matchup.
Whip of Erebos is the card that Andrew Batinich plays, which is a little bit awkward, facing down a Pharika, God of Affliction.
Right.
Siege Rhino on turn 4 from Eric Froehlich.
Now, what Eric's going to try to look for here is to leverage this Rhino, and if Andrew starts to whip things, he's going to, if he has mana open, he can activate Pharika, remove the creature from the graveyard, giving Andrew a 1/1 Death Touch Snake, which is actually pretty good in this matchup, except for we have a ton of Doomwake Giants.
Absolutely, yeah. And so 4 mana from Andrew Batinich, including the Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, is going to help cast an Eidolon of Blossoms to find another Sand-Stepped Citadel.
We got it right
easy
this time.
for me to say.
Yeah.
And that is going to be his 5th land, and he's going to pass the turn. Once again, 4-drop against 4-drop, one of them being slightly bigger, mattering much more in terms of aggression. Andrew Batinich at 15, and Eric Froehlich at 23 as a result of the come-into-play ability on the Rhino. Andrew down to 11.
Andrew has a better hand to fight that kind of game this game with a Hero's Downfall and a Hornet Queen in his hand already.
And he also has a Eidolon of Blossoms in play, which can get lifelink if it decides to get fancy and attack. And here is a second Rhino. Once again, they travel in crashes.
Eric's really good at casting multiple Rhinos.
Rhino's a good Magic card. He does have a Hero's Downfall to be able to take down one of the Rhinos, and also get in for 2 damage here, putting Andrew up to 17.
If Andrew doesn't have another follow-up here or another way to kill this Rhino, he's gonna be under the gun if Eric can do anything about his Hornet Queen. The Whip's gonna give him a little bit of cushion of life, but still he's gonna have to start to do things about this other Siege Rhino that's in play.
Life totals are 26 to 10 in favor of Eric Froehlich. 24 to 10. And Eric is going to get to untap with a Rhino in play. The Pharika God of Affliction currently has Devotion of 4, as the white on Siege Rhino does not count towards Devotion. Both the black and the green do. The Freaka God of Affliction becomes a 5/4 once the number of followers that it has reached a tipping point.
Yeah, we haven't seen too many active gods during this tournament. I did get to walk around a match earlier and watch Jonathan Job finish his opponent off by attacking with the Freaka, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have never seen that. I have never actually seen a Freaka attack.
It's a little bit of a rare sight. Usually it's just in there for the value and also the threat of removing whip targets. In comes the Rhino, by the way. Probably going to drop Andrew down to 6 here. And there is a third Siege Rhino. They travel in crashes, as I've mentioned before. Andrew Batinich squarely behind the 8-ball here.
If Eric wins this tournament and keeps drawing this way, I'm just going to start calling him the Rhino.
Yeah. Just going to drive it into the ground.
Yeah, just all the puns with Rhinos that we could find.
Andrew's 7th land was a comes into play tapped land, so the Hornet Queen that he has in his hand is a little bit stranded at the moment. And now, at end of turn, Freaka, God of Affliction, is going to make a 1/1 elemental, it's not elemental, enchantment snake, which would trigger Constellation if there were any Constellation effects on Eric's side of the field. There aren't. So it's just going to be a 1/1 Death Toucher. Andrew, at 3 life, is going to need a couple kill spells here. And here is Eidolon of Blossoms, triggering to draw a card. Eric can now draw a card pretty much at will with Freaka's ability because of the Constellation. He attacks, and Andrew Batinich is going to extend his hand and wish Eric Froehlich good luck in the semifinals.
Andrew exposed the hand of a 2nd copy of Whip and 2 copies of Hornet Queen that he could not cast because of his 7th land coming into play tapped. We thought this match was going to go long.
Yeah.
And it didn't go long at all.
It certainly didn't. Rhinos stampeded across the battlefield and put an end to Andrew Batinich's tournament. So my horse, of course, has fallen by the wayside.
All right, mine's still alive as far as we know. He's going to be coming in as soon as we can get the next game on camera. If they're in the middle of a game, we're going to have to wait for the next one to start to get it on camera.
You can see that match in the background there. Next to Eric Froehlich is Benny Beatdowns, Ben Lundquist, with a relatively full board, it would appear. And so we'll get their match. He is up against Blue-White Heroic, so we'll take a... See if I can't really see from here, but it looks like Benny has a few permanents in play, and his opponent doesn't, so... Looks pretty good for him. So for now, we're going to cut it back to the booth. Reuben Bresler, alongside the Tannon Grace, and we just saw Andrew Batinich fall to Eric Froehlich. Andrew Batinich was like a little bit of a darling of coverage this weekend. He had the most innovative Modern deck. He was the only one to qualify through Modern for Day 2. Then he made top 8 with Black-Green Devotion, a deck that you had been on a lot. Had some interesting card choices in his sideboard and in his main deck that we really liked a lot. A Johnny Mentor of Heroes in what was usually a 2-color deck. A Dead Drop in his sideboard, a main deck Soul of Innistrad.
I wanted to see that one happen.
But sadly, he is going to fall, and sadly for him, he's going to fall in top 8. He's going to take home a nice little bit of change for himself. Had a good weekend.
I'm also pretty sure that's his first loss on the weekend. First one cuts the deepest, doesn't it?
Wow, that's unfortunate. Well,
I'm pretty sure he EXO Drew into the top 8 of this tournament.
And went 4-0 to get into the tournament. So he was 8-0-2 before that most recent loss to Eric Froehlich.
Right.
Yep, but congratulations and condolences to Andrew Batinich. We will see Eric Froehlich in the top 4 when we have our next round, and we're going to be moving Ben Lundquist's match onto camera once it is
ready to go.
Easy to do so. We aren't going to move them in the middle of the round. But so let's talk about Eric's deck going forward in this top 8. The matchups that he is going to face are either Black-Green Devotion, which we just saw that he is capable of beating, a Mirror, which of course he's capable of beating and also losing to. It's a 50-50, of course. The other matchup that he has are Blue-White Heroic, which he's up against, or which he might be up against next round, and also the 1 copy of Jeskai Tokens. If you're Eric Froehlich and you see the road in front of you of Green-Black Devotion, Abzan Whip, Jeskai Tokens, Blue-White Heroic, what are you most afraid of, and what are you least wanting to see?
I really don't think he wants to play against the Blue-White Heroic deck, even though we've seen his deck play against it. You can just be up against the ropes so fast that they have one of their good normal draws. I think for sure he wants to play against the Jeskai Tokens deck and just hope to God the guy has normal draws. He wants to draw his Eidolon of Blossoms, he wants to draw his Corsair Crewfixes to interact early, and then cast a Doomwake Giant as quickly as possible.